How's it going, friends? Welcome to episode 1 of the Facebook Hackers Show, where we talk all things paid Facebook marketing tactics. I'm your host, Revel Lachlan, and in today's episode, I've got a very special guest. In fact, someone that, in my eyes, is an absolute professional and a gun at paid Facebook marketing. His name is Alex Stiehl. He runs an agency over in Canada called Get Noticed Media. Now, we cover a variety of different topics, such as how Alex scales client campaigns, how he revives client campaigns, and he also gives some great advice around those of you starting your Facebook journey for the first time, whether you're a freelancer or an aspiring agency owner, or perhaps even a business owner looking to run your own Facebook ads as well. So let's not waste any time, let's jump straight into the show. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have Alex Stiehl here today on episode 1 of the show. If you're not familiar with Alex Stiehl runs Get Noticed, 2 S's, ED, Media, where he scales e-commerce stores to in excess of $100,000 per month with Facebook ads. Alex is a strategist, he's a teacher, and also an investor. Alex, thanks so much for being here, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on. It's exciting.
Fantastic. Yeah, cool. How's things been going? You guys, obviously, at this point in time, it's the 17th of December, 2020. We're just sort of recovering from Black Friday sales. How's it all been going for you?
Yeah, I mean, some of our clients actually they had really good Black Friday sales, but things carried on quite well afterwards. Not quite the same numbers, but higher than normal volumes compared to last year and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. Starting to see a bit of a dip in it just because like the shipping times and the infrastructure and everything, especially in the US, is just completely overloaded. Like it's nuts, man.
Really?
So what a normal US shipping deadline would be like the 17th here, right? Or even priority shipping all the way up to the 22nd. That stuff's not even going to get to people. If they order today, it's not going to get to people. So we're seeing a lot of declines in sales right now just because of that, because we've had to pull off the shipping deadlines and let people know that it's not getting to them until probably January right now. But I mean, overall, like other than that, like the sales have been great. Even with the shipping deadlines pulled off, we're still seeing some sales are thriving. People are still in the buying mood, which is cool. And things like that. So,
yeah, let's hope the buying mood continues well into the new year, hey?
Exactly. Yeah, man.
That'd be great. Keep us in a job, that's for sure. But hey, look, for anyone who doesn't know who you are, would you be able to share a bit of your journey as to how you got into media buying and Facebook advertising? Obviously, you run, in my eyes, especially a premium service. How did you get into it all?
I appreciate that, man. Yeah, so I'm a recovering engineer. I was an engineer for about 10 years and had always been kind of trying to find income sources outside of that. I didn't want to sit behind the desk in a cubicle for the rest of my life kind of thing, right? And it was kind of it wasn't a fantastic way that I came into this. My daughter ended up getting cancer when she was 6-7 months old. And so I was in hospital with her for about a month and a half, 2 months off work. I was on like unemployment insurance, all this kind of stuff. I'm sole breadwinner for our family, right? My wife's a stay-at-home mom. And so we were on like unemployment and all this stuff for those 2 months there, and even further after that. And so I was just like surfing around on Facebook one night while my daughter's sleeping, and just got targeted by a random ad. Went down the rabbit hole, started looking at email marketing, started writing my own little random book. I was trying to sell some leadership materials online, that kind of stuff. Trying to find a way to do that. Came across a drop shipping course, Adrian Morris. If you don't know him, he's pretty cool, very authentic guy. He's awesome. And I just watched a bunch of his free material. Like he did webinars every Tuesday. And so I watched his stuff. I went back and watched all the replays, and I'm like, all right, I have a $300 credit on my Facebook account. So I could spend $300 before they bill me.
Yep.
And I had a 30-day Shopify trial. I'm like, well, I'm either going to do it with $300 or I'm toast, right? Because I don't have a credit card, and I'm on unemployment insurance, so I'm only getting like $1,000, $1,500 a month or something off this thing for like a family of 4, right? So like I'm making it work, or I'm screwed. And Yeah, in our first 3 weeks, we did about $500 in sales. So I paid for it and then kind of reinvested back in. First full month, we did 20,000 in sales. Second full month, we did 80,000 in sales. And that was like mainly from a hospital room, which was just nuts. And by the way, my daughter she's fantastic now. She's great. She's active cancer free. She's 5 years old. And then, so we did all that from like the hospital, fulfilling everything, AliExpress and all this. And I didn't understand the whole business model of e-commerce and knowing all the aspects of it, customer service and all these things. I didn't quite get it, but being an engineer, I understood data. I understood how to make accounts, how to read the information, how to
I was
think
about to
and
ask
target,
that, where your
right?
engineering came into this, because I can imagine that would just be such a great analytical skill set to merge or transition into media buying. Definitely. That's really cool.
Yeah, man. So, and it does, like, you really have to, you don't have to know numbers. You don't have to understand that kind of stuff, because there's various sides to media buying, right? And understanding data and being a media buyer is one of those things. Being able to look at the account, kind of like your metrics on there, what you need your cost per clicks to be, or your cost per purchase to be, all that kind of stuff. I understood that. I made Excel spreadsheets and reports and do research and development for 10 years. And so that kind of stuff, I was like, yeah, let's do it. Right. So I kind of switched from running my own store into running ads for other people. That's what I was good at. I scaled our store. I was good at that. So that's why I transitioned into. And but like I was saying, it's not just the data side of things and understanding the numbers. There's a lot of other stuff to actual marketing that goes into it, right? Where you now have your making of creatives, your images and your videos. So you have to have like a creative mindset as well. Your ad copies, understanding how to write properly, understanding your personas and your avatars, your customers. There's all sorts of stuff that ends up going into media buying, not just toggling switches and looking at numbers, right?
Oh, totally. It's such a holistic thing now, isn't it? I remember one of the first, do you mind me asking really quickly, what was the first ad that you saw that sparked your Facebook advertising journey? You mentioned you saw an ad and you're like, okay, yeah, we'll give that a go. Was that the Adrian Morrison course, was it?
No, it wasn't Adrian's. It was either Anik Singal or Fred Lamb. So one of those two.
Yeah, cool.
I think it was Anik Singal, because I was writing, I was going through his stuff. I bought his book Circle of Profits, which is all about writing an
Great
ebook
book.
and
Yep.
then trying to sell it, right? So I'm like, frick, I can do that, right? So
Yeah.
I started doing that,
That's
and
great.
I saw Ed Lamb. He was promoting Ed Lamb, and then he started promoting Adrian Morrison. I'm like, well, Adrian just makes sense. He's a cool guy. Started watching his stuff, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Cool, man. What an exciting journey you've had. That's exceptional. I'm so happy to hear that your daughter's doing well as well. I remember seeing that story on your Facebook profile, and I was like, this is a man that I can not personally relate to in that sense, but I can really appreciate the journey of going from zero to hero. Essentially, I appreciate that whole journey so much. I guess my next question would be something more along the lines of more of a media buying aspect. But what do you think, in your experience, would be perhaps the most underrated skill that a media buyer can possess in this day and age?
I would say probably one of them would be research. A lot of guys don't do a lot of, like, dive into the data and do the research. And I'm not talking about like, seeing if women are more buyers or men are more buyers. I'm like I was talking about earlier, understanding the avatars and the personas and the people that you're advertising to. So like it comes to whole like a marketing principles and marketing
Mm,
psychology. Most guys that I talk to that do ads, they're all about the strategy behind things and how do I do manual bidding? How do I set up this campaign? How do I do this kind of stuff? What budget should I use?
yeah.
All that is great, but I have seen so many people absolutely just killing it out there that don't know anything about really these kind of strategies.
Mm,
They understand what their customer wants, the needs that they have, and they give them a product that they're wanting, right?
yeah.
Like we just onboarded one client, and he's been selling probably around $400,000 a month for the past 6 months, literally using two audiences. That's it.
Wow.
he had one campaign with 2 audiences, no retargeting, doing around $300,000 to $400,000 a month off of that. And I'm just like, I look at this, I'm like, well, like, why couldn't I just do that with my store when I got started? Like,
The dream.
that'd be amazing, right?
Yeah, right.
And so, like, he understands what his customers want, and he's giving them what they want. He's making a quality product, and people are loving it. There's a lot of great feedback on it. He doesn't understand the strategy of it and how to scale it, or he doesn't have the time to do it, right?
Mm,
So I think that's kind of where people, a lot of media buyers kind of fall off, and they're stuck on the media buying and not on becoming a marketer,
mm.
right? The understanding the
Raise
whole
my hand.
aspect
That's
of advertising.
exactly where I started, Alex, was really, you know, starting with local lead generation was where I got my toes wet, so to speak, and transitioning into, helping other people with their ads. I was all about, look, I've used this strategy and this works. And unfortunately at the time, neglecting just foundational marketing principles. And thankfully I had some really good mentors at the time, and perhaps even some referrals to some really good books, and picked those books up. And I clicked really quickly that, okay, that makes a lot of sense. You can have all of the hacks, you can have all of the, manual bidding strategies and whatnot that a lot of people love to consume, because that seems like the secrets, that seems like this, the Big Mac sauce, right?
Yep.
But without those foundational principles, you constantly probably going to be spending too much time on the account, I guess, for the most part.
You do. Yeah. Like,
Mm,
and you, like, if you look at most of my posts, they are around strategies,
totally.
Facebook strategies. And I do those because that's what people want to see.
Want. Yeah, totally.
Right?
Yeah,
You make a
like
post
me.
about, yeah, you like, and there's nothing wrong with it. Like,
Mm,
if you can squeeze some more profits out of your campaigns, go for it. If, like, there's been lots of times this year and even last year when Facebook's algorithms were changing so much, where you needed to understand different strategies
mm,
and different ways to set up campaigns and how to manual bid and all this in order to stay profitable in your account. Like if your offer was kind of like okayish, um, you needed those strategies in order to keep the profits there. I mean, if your
mm.
offer was great, the algorithm is just going to do what it's going to do, right? But it's those guys that are kind of on the fence, or what have you, and where they need those strategies to implement them to be profitable. And we saw a lot of people got help with some of the strategies I dropped. But yeah, if you're talking about diving in and doing like a couple hours worth of research on your customer, understanding how they talk, like, people kind of tune out on that, right? So maybe I'll
Totally.
I'll
Yeah.
kind of stop talking about that.
No, that's a beautiful
But
thing, and I'm really glad you brought it to the surface here. I guess, in a nutshell, what are some of the, let's say, top two or three ways that you would recommend that a media buyer begin researching for a product?
yeah, so it used to be back in like the Ogilvy days, the Mad Men days of Addison Madden, you have to get like focus groups. You'd have 100 people, 50 people come into rooms, you have them test products and all this kind of stuff. Nowadays, it's all online. Everything's there.
Mm,
The data you need is there. We have one guy in our team, Marco. He's awesome at research, and that's all he does. He goes and he looks at things like, he'll dive into Facebook comments. So your comments from your posts,
yep.
he'll go in there and he'll dive in. He'll read those. He'll pull them out. He'll extract common words and common phrases, things that people are saying. Um, he'll dive into Amazon reviews. So, like, if you're selling socks, a particular type of socks, he'll dive into Amazon, try and find those socks on there or similar ones, see what people are saying in the reviews there. Again, like, find common phrases, words that pop out, the way that they're describing them, basically
Mm,
using their language in order to then write your ads towards those people, right? Kind of reiterating
yep.
what they say, which is kind of cool. So, yeah, like Facebook posts, Amazon reviews, even your store reviews, like looking at what the people say. You can even dive into like Facebook groups as well. So if you're, um, let's say you're doing like gardening or something, right? You could go into a gardening Facebook group and you could just start reading the posts in there. Just start understanding what people are talking about. Do you see questions that commonly pop up? Do you see
Mm,
comments that people are commonly making, and that kind of stuff? So you get to start to understand it a little bit more. And I started to understand that when a friend of mine, Damien DeFranco, if you know Damien from
yep.
AdLeaks there, he was telling me one day, that his mentor, when he went over to China, so he's if you guys don't know who Damien is, he's not that like well known here in North America, but in China, he's a white guy with a big beard, and he
I
stands
like
out
him
there, and
already.
he's well known there, right? And he went over there when he was like 16 to start 16 or 18 to start understanding manufacturing and everything. And his mentor said he gave him a stack of books, and they weren't even in English. He just gave him a stack of books. He had to get them translated. But the point was, well, all the books were actually like fictional books. They weren't like marketing books or anything like that. They were fictional books that his customers would be reading. And he markets, he manufactures one of his products, anyways. They manufactures, and his mentor manufactures adult products. So they're
Yep.
all like romance novels that you get at the supermarket or whatever. So it was hilarious. He had to hire some Chinese girl to translate the books for him. So she's sitting there reading these romance novels to him in English, and he said it was hilarious. But he got to understand what his customers were thinking and wanting,
Mm.
right? And so then when he went back to his mentor after like a period of time, his mentor had a warehouse full of stuff and said, "Okay, go walk around, and I want you to pick out 5 products that we're gonna put on the boat and we're gonna start selling." So he went around, picked out 5 products. The mentor looked at them, took 3 of them, threw 3 of them, and he said, 2 of them are great. Let's go. Right. So he was able to understand what the customer wanted, so he could go and find that product to match the customer's needs. Right.
Yeah, perfect. That's really good insight, man. Thank you so much for that. Now, a little bit more on the media buying again. Funnily that. What would be one of your favorite campaigns you've run and why?
One of my favorite campaigns that I've run. We got an idea from Maxwell Finn a while back about running a thank you video
Yep.
To people who just purchased, and I was kind of like, I understood the idea behind it. Obviously getting a little personal with people and whatnot. So we actually had one client do this, and they were fairly large clients. So they had a lot of customers coming through and everything. And yeah, she just got up, she recorded a video, just said, thank you and all this. And we put it up as an ad right after people bought, within like the first day or 2 days. It wasn't a purchase campaign. I think it was like a reach campaign. It had no headline. It had no button on it. It had no link at all. It was just one line of text with the video, and we were just running on a reach. And this thing was bringing in like 12 to 15 times ROAS with no links on it. And I was like, my mind was blown. Like, I heard Maxwell talk about it at a mastermind. I'm like, all right, man, I mean, you're a boss here. I'll do it, and we'll see what happens. And yeah, it was mind blowing how it
Wow.
actually worked. So yeah, if you're out there, record yourself saying a thank you video and throw it on a
Done.
past purchase
Done.
campaign.
All right, we'll get that. I recall Maxwell saying something about it within the group very briefly, and it's
Yep.
stuck in my mind, but I haven't executed on it. So we'll definitely give that a shot. That's for sure. How interesting! I'd love to see the attribution and the client journey of, say, URLs from, well, how did they get back to the store? Did they go back to the thank you email or the post-purchase email? Did they go through, click on the page, and then go and find the email? Like, that must have been a long journey. Do you know what I mean? But there's just so much connection there that, like, okay, maybe it's time we go back through and we get that thing that we didn't want, because I love these guys so much. How interesting.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it creates that, instead of keeping you a faceless corporation, it makes it more relatable, right? Like, even when I had my drop shipping store, I'd get emails from, like I said, I wasn't great at customer service or anything back then. So I'd get emails from people saying, "You're this big corporation, blah, 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 blah. Why can't you do this or that?" I'm like, dude,
Will
like,
you just selfie and send them this? This is me.
yeah. It's like, I'm just sitting in here in a hospital room with my laptop.
Yeah.
While my kid's sleeping. Like, that's how I'm running my business right now. I'm not a big corporation. Yeah, it was just kind of funny. But
that's interesting. That's a cool one, man. I really appreciate that one. How do you identify whether someone has a good product for Facebook ads?
Will they have a good product for Facebook ads? Well, I mean, like, every marketing channel has different type of buyer intent on it, right? So if we're looking at Google, people are searching for it and buying it. So I mean, if you're selling something extremely generic, Google might be the kind of way to go because people are going to search for your product and they can go down that journey there. Same with Amazon. And I get a lot of Amazon guys come over and ask me if we can run ads for them. And Facebook is, it's an interruption, right? So it's an impulse buy almost, unless you have like a really good customer journey or a really good, sequence of your retargeting ads and everything to bring people back in. But a lot of it is impulse buying and stopping them while they're watching like funny cat videos and, Vine videos or whatever, right? And you get them to buy something that they weren't intending to buy in the first place. And so it has to be something that people are obviously looking for, but just may not know they want it yet. Like you probably can't do tow truck services on there because it's very in the moment kind of thing.
Yeah.
But if you have something that could help somebody solve a problem and you can show them again with the marketing principles, you could agitate that problem within your marketing and show them a solution for it. People will click and they'll go and they'll watch and they'll learn and make that decision whether they want to buy it or not. Kind of where I think of those videos is the old as seen on TV videos. Have you ever seen these things?
Yeah.
They do such a great job of at the beginning illustrating the problem, like it's all dark and gloomy, right? And you dropped your pasta on the you dropped your pasta on your floor and your life is over now. Yeah. And then it switches around, it's nice and bright and cheery, and they have this cool little pail that they strain their pasta in, that whatever you can buy at the dollar store, but they're selling for like $80 on as seen on TV, right? Because they've done a good job with the marketing. They've interrupted, they've said, oh yeah, man, I drop my pasta on the floor all the time. I never do that, but yeah, of course that could happen to me.
I feel the pain. There goes my gnocchi.
Right. So I think there's a lot of stuff you can market on Facebook, even if it isn't that, as desirable. But the other thing I guess would be your margins, your profit margins. Like a lot of the Amazon guys that come over, they have smaller profit margins because Amazon PPC is, you can pay a couple dollars to get somebody your Amazon listing and buy, right? But then on Facebook, you try and do the same thing because it's not as high intent. It's going to cost you $10, $15, $20, $30 to make that sale. So understanding, first of all, can you find a way to agitate the problem and market that solution to people? And can you do it cost effectively within your margins and be profitable, right? So those are two kind of the main things that we look at when we look at customers or clients that are coming on.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thanks for that. It's really good insight, actually. It still, coming back to marketing foundations, really, isn't it? The more we sort of talk about it, it's still identifying, agitating a problem, presenting a solution, telling a story, hopefully while you're doing it, and crafting an offer that's tested and proven to encourage people to buy, impulsively on Facebook anyway. So those are really good points, man. What would your words of wisdom be to say your younger self prior to starting Facebook ads, and what advice would you give to yourself at that point in time, just starting your media buying journey?
I'd probably say be willing to give up control sooner.
Yep.
I think that's something that's held me back because I was a freelancer for several years, and then I decided to bring on a VA to help me out with some stuff as I was scaling accounts, and it was just kind of I didn't want to hand over much to him because I didn't think he could do the same thing that I could do, whatever, right, in certain aspects. And so it was difficult for me to even do that, and that's probably why I didn't really do well in keeping my dropshipping business, because I wasn't willing to hand things off to people, right? I was kind of wanting to control it on myself. I think that's a common entrepreneur thing just in general.
Oh, totally.
You don't think other people can do what you can do, but in reality, you can get somebody that can do something that can do this job better than you, and you can get somebody that can do that job better than you and that job better than you. And so now you have like 4 people that are kind of specialized in their different roles that can just escalate the entire business so fast and get better performance out of it, right? Instead of you rushing around trying to do everything, which is where I was and what I was doing. But yeah, I think that's probably one of the biggest things in there. And like, especially with Facebook, their algorithms and the way they're pushing everything is they're trying to get everybody to be more hands off in what they do. Like you look at CBO and you look at their Power Five. It really is the way they set it up in there. If you guys don't know campaign budget optimization, Power Five is like this certain way of setting up a campaign. It's really all just kind of like set it and forget it. Let Facebook optimize it and all those things, right? And so the more you can understand that you don't necessarily have to be the one toggling the switches and doing all that, I think is will help you grow your business and even help you be a marketer, because you can focus on those other things that will have a bigger impact, like understanding your customers or even conversion rate optimization, which is huge, which nobody really talks about either.
Yeah, it's funny we're talking about it. I was only speaking with a consulting yesterday with a potential client, and we sort of got onto a relatively new startup store, anywhere from about 10, maybe 15K Australian per month. And the only conversation or the only question that, hadn't been addressed in that hour-long consultation was, how do we further optimize our pages? How do we further optimize our Shopify stores, the kind of thing. Do you think that's low-hanging fruit, that conversation around conversion rate optimization for someone's website?
Absolutely, I do. And you're right. It's not really that talked about that often, right? And like the thing is, if you think about it, if your site is converting at, let's say, 1%, okay, and you're sitting around $50 per purchase on Facebook, if you could find a way to increase your purchase conversion from 1% to 2%, I mean, that's 1% increase. It's not really that huge of an increase, right? But if you can find a way to go from 1% to 2%, you will cut your ad costs in half. You're literally cutting your ad costs in half, right? Because you doubled your conversion rate. And so now you're having twice as many people convert off the same ad spend. So now you went from $50 per conversion down to $25 per conversion. So you went from unprofitable now to wildly profitable, right? And the same, you can keep doing stuff like that too. That was one thing that, like, being an engineer and analyzing everything that I was doing on my site. And I think that's the reason why one of the reasons why I was able to scale so fast is because I started testing that stuff. People were telling me, don't worry about it, just run this ad, do this kind of stuff, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, but if I could do this, it's going to be cheaper for me. And I ended up having, I had certain products on my store that were converting at 6% purchase conversion. I had other ones around 12 to 15% purchase conversion on Shopify store.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah, and it's conversion rate optimization, right? Like we were marketing kids shoes, like these moccasin shoes. One of our best selling products, and the other one was like a camera product. So we found our products because those were the markets that we were in. We knew we liked those ones. My wife and I liked that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And we knew the cost of it here in Canada. And we're like, okay, we can get it for dirt cheap off AliExpress and we can mark it up, and it was all good, right? So that's why we marketed those ones. But so we had two different audiences all running to the same store, and looking at heat maps and doing split testing on the website. I ended up tagging our website for our baby stuff. So it was, I forget what it was tagged. It was like babies or something, right? And then our camera stuff was tagged cameras. And depending on the product page that they were on with that tag, the product page looked completely different. The headlines were different. The button color was different. The name, like the call to action on the button was different. Like we had a green button here, a yellow button there. Like it was just the user experience was completely different because the audience was completely different. Yeah. And I knew if I could get a better conversion rate with a yellow button or like an Amazon orange button for the baby guys, but I needed a green one for the camera guys because the Amazon orange just sucked for them. Like people didn't even click on it. It's just that kind of stuff, right? But nobody does that. Nobody thinks about that. How do I split test? How do I actually figure this out? Right? It's understanding your customer. Like you can even go into all those like colors and stuff there. What was it called? Archetypes. Yep, so you can look up, there's like 12 different archetypes or something, but they have different color ranges associated with each type of archetype. They associate better with different colors. Right. Same thing with the camera guys and all this, right?
Yeah.
So it's just
that's fascinating, man. I find that fascinating. Just simple things like colors. It's obviously something that's had a lot of research and studies go through it, and there's a fair bit of literature on it as well in a marketing sense. But still, to have two completely different products and have, just for one part of the conversation, have different colors of call to action buttons, to me is just really, I don't know, fascinating to say the very least. What would be some of the tools that you would use to say split test? I know we've got things like Hotjar for heat maps, among other things. You might have another recommendation as well. What about tools for, say, split testing, A/B testing, different Shopify product pages, for example?
We'll touch on Hotjar first there. Yeah, Hotjar's a free one up to a certain amount or something, right? You have like Lucky Orange as well. That's a pay one. But Microsoft came out with one a month or two ago called Microsoft Clarity. And I've actually dumped Hotjar and Lucky Orange, and I've put every single client we have coming on, I've loaded up the Microsoft Clarity code onto it. One, because it's fast. It loads really fast. Hotjar is like so slow.
It is.
It drags your site down. It's terrible. So
Totally.
Microsoft Clarity is actually pretty quick. So it doesn't hurt the customer's experience. And it gives you a lot more data on there, and it's free. Like, it's unlimited and free. They're stealing your information and using that to get for themselves. But I mean, It's free for us. So, it's good, right? So check out my Microsoft Clarity if you're okay with them using your information.
Yeah.
As far as like split testing goes, there's not really any good Shopify apps that will do A/B testing. The way that they're set up is really weird. And it's not like an actual true split test. So we use something called OmniConvert. The other one you can use is like VWO. Those are all paid ones. They do A/B testing, multivariant testing. So if you don't, multivariants, like you could change the headline, colors, picture, structure of the page, like all sorts of these things, and it'll make all these array of combinations. It's kind of like a dynamic creative in Facebook, right? You put all your variables in, and it does it all for you. But you can use a free one too. Like there's Google Optimize is free. It's not fantastic. It's a little slow. And I've even seen some of the reporting lately is not been up to date either, not been that great, but it's free. So that's why I started using when I started out with my CRO stuff.
Ah, cool. Thanks for that, man. Those are really good tools. Now that we're sort of on the topic as well, what would be your advice to someone who is either or looking to start drop shipping, e-commerce brand, looking at products, looking to dump a few $1,000s into Facebook marketing? Maybe they're learning themselves, or advice to someone looking to start their Facebook marketing media buying journey at this point in time?
Yeah, the guys are looking to do drop shipping or start their own e-commerce business, or even just any physical product business in itself. I think it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, is understanding your customers and finding a product to fit them, right? Because you have one option of going out and just finding a product that you think is going to sell, and then you have to go and try and find the audience to sell it to. Where on the other side of things is you can go and you can find the audience, find what they want. Like I was talking about, reading Facebook posts, reading comments, find out what the negatives, like if you go and find dog nail trimmers or something, right? And you read the negatives of these dog nail trimmers, the negative comments and reviews, you can see what the issues are. And then if you want to manufacture a product, you can manufacture a product that solves those issues, right? Or if you're looking at comments in Facebook posts and whatnot, you can see what people are looking for and kind of products. And then you can go and find a product that's like that, or manufacture one, because the product in itself is going to be one of your biggest battles, right? If you can have a product that people want, it'll sell. I've seen so many absolutely terrible websites where marketing was terrible on it. The website was horrible. I don't even know how people got to it and clicked on it, but they were doing tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars and like all this crazy stuff. So the product is going to be one of your biggest ones, I think, for e-commerce. Making you have a good fit there. If you're looking to get into just media buying and already starting an agency or being a freelancer in that, there's a lot of YouTube videos out there that are great. Listening to podcasts like we're doing right now. The best thing to do with that is to get in and get your hands dirty and test some of the strategies out, understand the platform, and whatnot, right? I think that's probably the best thing.
Totally agree. I think I was very fortunate to have my business at the time to guinea pig a lot of these different strategies. And I've always been a very kinesthetic learner. I always learn by doing, as I'm sure most people do anyway. But man, the shortening of the learning curve by taking resources that may be free and putting value on them to the point where you actually go and execute on them, like amazing, like actually life changing. I think that obviously goes across multiple industries and multiple disciplines, not just media buying, right? So I
Yeah.
definitely agree with you there. Um,
Yeah, education. Like I went to college and I've learned more since I've been out of college. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like once you find something that you like doing and you're kind of passionate about, you'll dive in and you'll watch like 6 hours worth of YouTube videos on stuff
yep,
to learn more about it so you can be better at it just because you really like to do it and you want to learn it, right? Versus sitting and reading a textbook at college, which I never did. But
yeah.
you
Well, we
know,
call it university over here in Australia, and I didn't finish
yeah,
university. I did about 2 years, and I was like, well, like, what am I doing? Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
It just kind of was very lucky to actually fall into media buying way back in the day. But yeah, I totally resonate with that. You know, it's just one of those rites of passage, isn't it? Just seems like the thing that you do. You go from school, you go to college in your case, or university over here, and that's what people have done. And it's also another fascinating conversation around how you break that mold, because you could just imagine the amount of influence that's been placed upon you or you within that environment of your parents and your social circles, and everyone else is doing the same thing. It's hard to kind of not necessarily course correct, but break that mold. Do you know what I'm
it is.
saying? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, very
Yeah, yeah,
interesting.
yeah. You've been trained basically your entire life to be an employee. Like I honestly believe that's the purpose of a school, like
Agreed.
government funded schools, is
Mm,
to train you to be a good employee to pay your taxes, right? There's not a whole lot in there. There are some classes, business classes, that most people don't take, but the majority of it is just to teach you how to think, to get through tests and whatnot, right?
mm.
And be a good employee. So it is hard to break that mold. And like you're saying, like my family, I'm the first one that really has been an entrepreneur, had my own business, and lived off of it. And
Cheers,
my
man.
family. So yeah, appreciate it.
Excellent. Off the back of just talking about strategies and whatnot, really quick, what would be your top three favorite Facebook strategies to move away from the traditional marketing foundations, all that kind of stuff that we've covered?
Yep.
What would be your top three? I know what my top three of yours are, but what are your top three?
um, I used to really like our sniper campaign. They took away the target cost from us back in October,
Mm,
unfortunately. So I mean, we could
mm.
still do sniper campaigns with cost cap, but we aren't using it as much. We're using the sneak attack from Tim Bird, as well
Yep.
as his bully method. I think those are kind of the two top ones that we're doing. Some manual bidding type strategies in there. But other than that, through a lot of our accounts, we're doing low budget ABO testing. So ad set
Yep.
budget testing, 10, 20, $60 ad sets. And then from there, we're escalating them into what we call our easy bake campaign, which is, if you ever seen an easy bake oven, it's set it and forget it. And right. So it's a
I remember
CBO.
reading the post. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a CBO where you just you put all your best stuff in it, your best ad sets, your best ads. You just throw everything in there with a big budget on it, $1,000, $2,000, $5,000, and you just let it ride. And
Mm.
Facebook optimizes. So
That's really interesting. Your Can we talk really quick about your sniper method, because that's a method that I still use to date, and I have some of our VAs use as well.
nice.
Um, your sniper method. So essentially, it's inching up manual bids, although can't use target costs anymore. More like cost caps. I've had a lot of success with that method of yours in cost caps as well, and inching up manual bids to a point where it just starts to spend. Is that correct?
Yep.
And where would that sort of come into the timeline of things? Straight away, or midway through, or in an attempt to try and scale, or where does that sit?
So it's not like it's hard to scale those sniper campaigns because the goal of them is to basically pick off low hanging fruit. Like that's why I call it the sniper, because it's not spending very much. You might spend like
Yep.
$5 today and nothing tomorrow, 10 the next day or whatever, right? It's really just spending a couple bucks here and there. And you might get some that spend, a couple hundred, just depending on where the bids are. But really it's just picking off the low hanging fruit at a really cheap cost.
Mm.
So it's it's not as much of a, scale the account, start spending a couple $1,000s more. It's more of a, okay, we're already spending a lot. These audiences are working great. Let's make a sniper campaign wrapped around a audience, and we'll try and pick off the low hanging fruit that we're not getting in our scaling campaigns. That'll help us overall reduce the CPA on the entire account, right? Because as you scale your accounts, like when you scale budgets up, Facebook has to go out and find more people, and it ends up costing more because they got to go do more work. They got to go through algorithms, find more people to convert. So that your CPAs end up rising as you start scaling. So if you can incorporate some of these sniper campaigns in there, they'll pick off those low hanging fruit and help you keep the whole account at a lower CPA, right? Because that's what you need to look at. You got to look holistically at the account when everything working together. If you can keep that CPA within range.
Yep, definitely. That's really good, man. And hey, thank you for dropping that sniper method. When was that? Was that August last year?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I think it was last year at some point. I think it was around May something of 2019.
Still using it today. Yeah. Other than October, we had to shift to cost caps, but excellent, man.
Yeah.
Like just value. I put so much value on that.
I appreciate
it. So I've got a little segment here called Hot Seat, and I'm just going to throw 2 scenarios at you and see what comes out. Okay. So scenario 1 is you've got an account, it's been working fine, it's profitable for the past few weeks, and then all of a sudden, over the past 2 days, it crashes. What process do you go through to identify the problems and hopefully fix them?
Yeah, I mean, you got to figure out why it crashed, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of things that can happen with the Facebook. You could end up, like the algorithm could have literally just changed overnight, which they like to do. So you have to kind of take that into account. But I mean, somebody else bigger could have come into the auction and started to outbid you. So you can look at your auction competition, see if that's increased.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I would do is look at your website and make sure it's converting in there. I mean, if the entire account drops overnight, it's likely not a single audience issue. It's likely something account wide. Maybe your Facebook page dropped in his page score or something, and now you're getting penalized. Or like I said, your website, your checkout's not working or something, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I would primarily look at in there.
Yeah, fantastic. And scenario number 2, you've got an account spending $1,000 a day. How do you go about getting it to $5,000 a day profitably?
So you can either, depending on how it's structured, assuming you're not doing like one campaign at $1,000.
Although that would be great, let's be honest.
Like the other guy, that our client, he was doing that, right? I mean, if you are, then yeah, go ahead and start inching up the budgets on it. We use a 20% increase in our budgets, unless something is like really cranking that day, like you got like 10, 15, 20 sales on it, it's all profitable. Then if you duplicate the budget, or I mean, if you don't duplicate, if you double the budget, it can start to re-optimize very quickly.
Yeah.
But typically we just use 20% increases in our budgets. Or if we know something's working, we don't want to mess with it at all, what we'll do is we'll just duplicate that ad set or that campaign at a higher budget and let it go, right? That way your initial one should stay working the way it's been working. So that's kind of what we're doing right now. When we have those testing campaigns that are going, we take those and put those into our easy bake campaigns, and we set those anywhere between $300 all the way up to $2,000 to start. And so if you're at $1,000, you obviously have audiences that are working already, and ad sets that are audiences and ads that are working already. So I would take those and I would put those into our easy bake campaign, a CBO campaign with just no rules, no nothing on it, and let it go for a couple of days. And if it starts to converting, then fantastic. Start increasing your budget on it, bumping your budget up, bumping your budget up, bumping your budget. Keep going and keep going with it on there.
Beautiful. Oh, thanks for that, man. That's fantastic. And last question I'll ask today, bit of a funny one, but what question haven't I asked you today that I should be asking you on the topic of Facebook marketing?
Are marketers still relevant?
Are marketers still irrelevant?
I had somebody ask me that about 2 years ago.
Wow.
When like RevealBot was coming out and getting a little bit more handle there, because I'm really heavy in automation, and because if I could do something, like I like efficiency, right? So if I don't have to do the work over and over and over again, then I don't have to. That'd be fantastic. So I got really good at running automated rules, and one of our accounts is pretty much just run automatically on automated rules. There's like 5,000 a day on it.
Excellent.
In sales, and we just kind of launch new audiences in there. That's pretty much all we do. New audiences, new ads, and everything's managed by rules. So what's the point of a marketer? Are we still relevant? And then you have all these AI programs that are coming out right now that I wouldn't necessarily classify them as AI. There's some of them that are really good at AI, where they're
machine learning.
Exactly, yeah, machine learning. But there's some that are really good at writing ad copy, like surprisingly good at writing ad copy, to the point where I get some of my guys to actually use it for some of our ad copy. You got some services out there that make creatives for you, and all you gotta do now is just paste it together. Is there a point in actually somebody toggling switches? Being a media buyer?
Yeah,
right?
I see what you're saying.
And it's like with Facebook doing all their CBOs and their machine learning and algorithms and all this, they're wanting you to move more towards that. So I think there is still room for a media buyer, because you have to know how to structure campaigns properly.
Yep.
In the whole funnel of it. So there's still that aspect that AI really hasn't figured out yet and hasn't come up with yet. But there's a lot of aspects in there. The toggling of switches can be done by automated rules. The making of creatives, the making of ad copies, all that can really be done fairly hands off, or with a VA or somebody that specializes in that specific thing. So I think it's not that we're irrelevant, but I think it's shifting, right?
Definitely more hands off, right? Yeah, I totally agree with you. I'd be so interested to see where your knowledge sits in the timeline of, well, how do I take my e-commerce store from 10 grand a month to 100 grand a month? Like where you sit more so as perhaps a consultant to go use this and this, whether it be a chat or a conversation about using RevealBot for these rules and how to automate your account, all of that kind of stuff. I find it interesting. You mentioned a really interesting topic around automating copy and copywriting and whatnot. And I've seen a couple of those tools out there. And I must be honest, nothing that I've been like super happy with, but that element of what we thought only a human could perform, of writing an art form copy to be able to invoke an emotion, agitate a problem, provide a solution, and then a call to action. And then to give that to AI or machine learning or whatever it ends up being is actually really fascinating. There's going to be a day soon where we're going to be fighting off machines, surely.
No doubt, man.
Well, Alex, thank you very much for your time, my friend. I very much appreciate it. I know there's probably 1,000,001 things you could be doing right now. Where can we find you online if there's some of our listeners that want to reach out to you, get some advice, and perhaps engage your services?
Mainly I'm on Facebook, so you can look me up on Facebook, Alex Stiehl on there. We have our own Facebook group, Ecom Addicts, so you can look up Ecom Addicts on there as well. Kind of chat about, been mostly just dropping memes and stuff right now, just through Christmas and everything. But yeah, you can come in there and chat with us in there. If you want to hit me up, you can do it on Facebook, or you can come to our website, getnotice.com, with 2 S's at the end or instead of the C. And you can check us out there. And to be honest, I haven't updated my website since I started, so it's kind of terrible.
Been too busy, man.
You can check it out anyways. Exactly. That's
great. Now, we'll to our listeners, we'll put all of those links below so you can get in touch with Alex and get even more value than you've got from this episode. But again, Alex, thank you so much for your time, mate, and look forward to hearing from you in the future.
Thanks for having me on, Rebel. You're awesome, bud.
And there you have it, my friends. That is episode 1 of the Facebook Hackers Show in the bag with Alex Stiehl from Get Notice Media. If you have any suggestions and if you really enjoyed this, I would love to see a rating. I'd love to see a subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Follow us along on all of the channels. You know the dealio. And the reason we want this is obviously to reach more people. Why would we want to reach more people? Well, we want to share more of these free strategies because this is the stuff that is going to help you and other people and people you know and care about grow their business through wonderful channels like Facebook. So again, hope you enjoyed it. Let us know if you had any suggestions as to who you'd like to see next on the show, and I'll see you then.